Hello there, Marshall Sutcliffe here in the booth. That's Ian Duke. We're ready for round number 10. Now, for those of you that watched the booster draft, you will have seen that we recorded two different players' draft.
Mm-hmm.
We get to watch them play against each other now.
Oh,
Let's sit
that's
down
awesome.
to the feature match area for round number 10. Hello and welcome to coverage of Pro Tour Oath of the Gatewatch. We're ready for round number 10. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Ian Duke. And we've got a really sweet matchup here, Ian. We've got Paulo Vitor Damo da Rosa, the Hall of Famer, 10-time Pro Tour top 8er. You see him right there, looking ready to rumble here. We got the chance to watch him draft this morning. And we'll usually watch two players draft out of our pod that we've chosen. And his opponent we also watched draft. That's Martin Muller on the other side of the table from Denmark. You take a look at Martin. Now, both of these players are sitting at 7-2 in the tournament currently. And they are underway here. So for those of you that have been with us since the early morning, you're going to have a good idea of what these players are up against. But why don't we update the people that maybe missed that portion? What are we looking at here, Ian?
So Paulo had an excellent blue-red draft. He got some nice bomb rares like Jewelry N, Fall of the Titans, Brutal Expulsion. But really the core of his deck is a colorless deck with a lot of C mana. So I think of it as like a
Did you say C mana?
Colorless mana, yeah. Blue
That's
plus,
like the letter C.
Like the letter C, yeah. Blue plus colorless mana deck with some supporting red cards.
Is that what you guys call it in R&D for short?
Yeah,
C?
yeah. So
I like that.
it's handy.
Now, what about for Martin Muller on his side of the table? I know he had a bangin' pack one, pick one there with Nissa. What else does he have going on?
Yeah, so he is a Bant color deck. Looks like he's primarily white and green. With some good solid mid-range creatures, some support, some +1/+1 counters. You mentioned he has Nissa, and then splashing some blue cards like Sweep Away and I think Reflector Mage, and a couple others as well. So I would, I'd definitely say Martin wants to build up a big board here and just start getting +1/+1 counters everywhere, sort of getting things out of range of Paulo's smaller creatures. But Paulo's deck also has a lot of late game as well. We talked about Jewelry N. He's got a Fall of the Titans there for later on. So, yeah, this could be anybody's game.
And that Seed Guardian has done overtime here for Martin Muller in the matches that we've seen him in the feature match area, holding off flyers. And he's doing exactly that right now. Paulo's going to take his 5th turn, sacrifice his Scion, and get a Wavewing Elemental onto the battlefield here so it can potentially tussle with that Seed Guardian.
Yeah, Seed Guardian, a card that does a lot of work here. We actually, Seed Guardian didn't initially have Reach in our early play testing. We actually added Reach on there to give the green decks a little bit of extra defense. And it looks like it's been doing that job very well.
The artwork reminds me of Kudzu. Do you remember that card?
I do remember, yeah. Old school.
He's back. All right, so Paulo did find a land for the turn, an island that can trigger the landfall. Start getting some beatdowns flowing here, but he's planning out his entire turn. You can see that this is one of the things that separates Paulo from the crowd, is his ability to plan on a big picture. And he is going to look at this. He's going to attack with both of these. He has to have something. There's 2 Reach creatures on Martin Muller's side of the battlefield here. Netcaster Spider has long arms as well.
And we do see Paulo has Brutal Expulsion in his hand. Probably what he's hoping to use to influence combat here.
Maybe he's going to use Brutal Expulsion to deal the final 2 on whatever ends up blocking the Sky Spawner.
Yeah, in particular, if he can deal the damage to the Seed Guardian, then it'll be exiled, so its death trigger won't trigger.
Oh, great point. Paulo just says, look, I'm not going to be able to fight through all of this, so I'll take... Going to have to just take it as I can get it here, and he's going to have a really nice play here. He's going to return the Chidrua Pathwarden, and he's going to do 2 damage to the Spider. God, Paulo's good at this. And remember, he also snuck in that Seer's Lantern there as well, so he can keep the land drops flowing with Scry on his upkeep, maybe. He kind of is in that beautiful position that landfall lends itself to so often, which is you kind of want lands or spells off the top of your library at this point.
Yeah, that's true. Makes the Scry a little bit less valuable, but
yeah.
Still, yeah, he's in a good spot.
Ooh, and here's Nissa hitting the battlefield. Oh,
wow.
What a sweet swing for Mueller here. Unnatural Aggression is going to fight the Seed Guardian against the 3/4 Wavewing Elemental while the shields are down there. And we are going to see an upkeep Seer's Lantern Scry ability here, as now those lands are a lot less valuable to Paulo. And here we see, you know, not the best play in the world, but at least it's something. He's got a Benthic Infiltrator.
Yeah, it can keep Nissa in check a little bit here.
This is going to start producing plant tokens. And Martin's going to finally replay that to Drew Pathwarden that he had bounced a couple of turns ago. Wow, Martin has really set himself up beautifully here. That last turn was a complete blowout. And now he just finds himself in a position even to be able to start attacking here for 4 damage. You gotta love Mueller's spot here.
Yeah, it seems like he stabilized quite well. I really like that sequence where he protected his Seed Guardian, then untapped and pumped it up with Nissa and used it to fight. That was really the sort of the key turning point in this game.
Interestingly there, Paulo did scry on his upkeep. He kept it. Can't be good news for Martin Mueller. Martin's also got a Blighted Woodland there, so he can search up his other color. He is playing blue. Just 1 island in his list. And a Lumbering Falls as well.
So Martin attacked there with the Seed Guardian. That leaves Nissa vulnerable on board to the Gravity Negator, it looks like. So I wonder if Paulo is thinking about Vines of the Recluse. Maybe second guessing his attack here. Additionally, Paulo just under a lot of pressure on the ground here from the Tajuru Pathwarden and the 4/5 Seed Guardian.
Martin perhaps prophetically.
Yeah, it's interesting. Reaching for the Nissa there prematurely is kind of like a double bluff in a way, where like he's kind of acting like he's bluffing, which might make Paulo think he has a trick, like a Vines of the Recluse or Immolating Glare or something like that. But in reality, he doesn't actually have it, so he's kind of kind of like a second level thing. But indeed, Nissa does fall in combat.
All right, well, Ondu Rising here for Martin Mueller is going to create a situation that is completely, there's going to be no race possible here from Paulo.
Yeah,
he wasn't really in a position to race anyway.
That's right. We sort of see Martin's true plan there, which is like attacking with the Seed Guardian the previous turn, left the Nissa vulnerable, which coaxes Paulo into attacking, which then lets the Ondu Rising generate a ton of value.
Huge crush of damage there. Look at Paulo's life total now.
Yeah.
3.
This is a pretty bad spot for Paulo. I mean, he'd need something like a surged Fall of the Titans, even just to get back in the game a little bit at this point. Looks like he does actually have the Fall of the Titans in his hand, and I think he drew another non-land card, so there's a possibility there. Looks like that second card is Embodiment of Fury, our spotters on the floor say.
Correct. Yep. Not a lot Paulo can do to get out of this spot here.
Yeah, it looks to me like Martin has a safe attack with all 3 creatures here.
Yeah, he's just gone over the top. these are all necessary blocks to avoid death here. One creature does get traded off, but as you can see, Martin Muller finds himself with 2 lethal threats. Make that 3. But wait, there's more. Make that 4 lethal threats here. And against blue-red, there's really no big downside to playing it this way. And Martin Muller, impressive fashion, turns the corner on Paulo Vitor Damo da Rosa, finishes him off in short order to take down our first game here in our round 10 feature match. We'll be back right after these messages.
Qualify for the next Pro Tour on Magic Online. Go 5-0 or 4-1 in a preliminary to advance to the finals. You can see the full schedule at mtgo.com. In the art of Magic the Gathering Zendikar, you can experience the danger and beauty of Zendikar like never before. This lavishly illustrated hardcover book features the award-winning art of Magic the Gathering and gives you an insider's look at the secrets of Zendikar, its peoples, continents, and creatures. On sale now.
And welcome back to the feature match area here in Atlanta for Oath of the Gatewatch. Take a look at one of our side tables here. It looks like we're going to head to table D, which is Patrick Dickmann from Germany. He's playing against Jelger Wiegersma from the Netherlands. And as we pop in here, they're still in game 1. And it looks like Dickmann is ahead on life totals for sure, and probably on board here as well. There's a Sire of Stagnation, I believe, on Patrick Dickmann's side of the battlefield, which is, well, it's huge. It's 5/7 for starters. Oh no, yeah, this is getting ugly. That's a Walker of the Wastes in the middle, and Dickmann looks like he is rumbling here. Jelger drops down to 5 life here. And things are not looking good from Jelger's perspective. Blister Pod's the follow-up for Patrick. Nothing too impressive there, but he doesn't need much. Jelger has a handful of lands. He doesn't want to play any of them because of that Sire. And this could just be it. We may have come right at the finish of this game. Block, block, pass, gain 2 life. Still stays at 5, but unfortunately for Jelger, he's down a creature in that transaction. And once again, Patrick just passes a turn back, and man, that is a lot of lands in hand for Jelger. As he passes a turn again. Can he survive this turn? 2, 3, no, he cannot. And that's going to be game. So Patrick Dickmann from Germany, he is going to pick up the victory here. Now, Patrick is sitting at 7-2 as well as Jelger. So both of them fighting to stay in top 8 contention here in the early stages. And remember, this is only the second round of the day here on Saturday. But so a long way to go. But still, every match is going to count for these gentlemen all the way through. Get a good look at our feature match here. You can see some of the hedrons kind of poking through the ground over there. Those are not native to Atlanta. It looks like we're just going to pop back over to our main match once the players are ready. They're still resolving mulligans there. Patrick's going to take a quick leave there. I like his shirt. Got that Captain America shirt going on.
Nice.
Got the shield. All right, so it looks like we're just about ready here. See anything interesting maybe on the sideboards here? You know, sideboarding in Limited it tends to be pretty underrated, generally speaking.
Yeah, it's really difficult to predict. A lot of sideboarding in Limited is just about how you envision the matchup playing out, whether you view yourself as the more controlling deck, the deck with inevitability, or the deck where the pressure is on you to make something happen. It's less about like, oh, I saw an artifact, so I want to bring an artifact removal.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, difficult to predict, but there are lots of options, I think, in both Battle for Zendikar and Oath of the Gatewatch.
Seen some kind of interesting ones here from Martin Muller's side, because one thing that we noted there was that once he started having huge creatures on the ground, they were just bigger, right? Like,
Yeah.
Paulo's trying to peck in there with flyers, and notably, we didn't see any blinding drones out of Paulo Vitor Damo da Rosa in Game 1, even though he's got 2 of them in his
And I
list.
think no containment membranes either.
Correct.
I think he has 2 of both cards.
Yeah, and it would be interesting, he's got cards, Martin does, like Canopy Gorger in his sideboard, kind of big dummies, Kozilek's Pathfinder. These kind of just, look, if you're going to play small flyers, I'm just going to play these huge beaters on the ground. But I tell you, that probably wouldn't work out well for him, given what we know about Paulo's deck.
Yeah.
But he doesn't.
Martin doesn't know that. And the other interesting thing is I think Martin played against Huey Jensen last round. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And he knew that they were seated next to each other in the draft and both drafted blue-red. So
that's
he may
true.
be viewing Paulo's deck as sort of a suboptimal version of the blue deck that has some holes in it, has maybe some trouble dealing with big creatures since he was fighting over those cards. So yeah, a lot of interesting stuff going on there in terms of the psychological aspect of this match.
So Martin took a mulligan, but he does find a turn 3 core Sky Climber here, as Paulo hasn't done anything. Nothing going yet.
Yeah, it looks like Paulo lacking red mana at this point. Looks like our hand viewer does show us he has a Crumbling Vestige there that he picked up. He's just thinking really hard about when does he want to play it and get his one sort of charge of red mana out of it.
Looks like he's going to do it immediately here and get a Mauve Kozilek down, which is a nice play, because it's not often that Martin's going to want to start activating that Sky Climber this earlier in the game to stunt his board development.
Very true.
He is going to do it here, which indicates he doesn't have much else to do, which is good news for Paulo. He would gladly trade 3 life here to have Martin just not add anything to the board, I think. Ooh. He still doesn't have that red mana, though, does he? That was a brutal expulsion off the top there for Paulo. Paulo's going to get in for 4 damage here before following up with Containment Membrane. Yeah, that worked out beautifully for Paulo. I think he's pretty happy about this altogether. And Martin Muller, unfortunately, has no play here, though he does have a place to put his mana, thanks to that Blighted Woodland he's got. In the meantime, another 4 damage, or is it? Yeah. Paulo looks up at him like, you gonna Gideon's Reproach me or something? But nothing. And Paulo misses his land drop again and just passes the turn back. So not great. Paulo's been able to make the best of it and put himself ahead on board, but this could be a big turn for Martin.
Yeah, oddly, it sort of works out well for Paulo that he didn't have a follow-up creature there, or in the past couple turns, because I think we will see Martin perhaps add Linvala the Preserver to his board this turn. And that'll give him a boost in life total, but not the additional creature.
Hilarious.
Looks like instead he picked up Jiraga Auxiliary.
Yeah, I think that he knows that Paulo is short on mana, and once he finds that mana, he will tap a bunch of it, but just running Linvala into potential, counterspell there doesn't seem great.
That's a great point. Yeah, it could be something like a Void Shatter or something along those lines.
Yeah, Spell Shrivel.
Yep, Spell Shrivel,
still in the format. And, when you're sitting in Martin's seat and you're playing limited, you really don't want to give your opponent the chance to use up a counterspell in that spot. You want to strand that mana in their hand.
Absolutely.
In the meantime, though, he has found a mountain, Paulo Vitor Damo da Rosa. He's going to attack with his Maw.
Oh, and this is really nice. Searing Light in response to the pump.
In response to the pump. And unfortunately for Paulo, he can't redo it. He doesn't have any more colorless. Wow, Searing Light taking down a Maw is nice.
Yeah, that's a really nice use of that.
And even with a pump on the stack just to curb his mana even that much more.
Paulo, with a couple options here, you could add either a Goblin Freerunner or Embodiment of Fury. Looks like he goes for the powerful Embodiment of Fury here. Just wants to get as much on the board as he can.
Figures he's going to find some more lands here and start smashing, and that is nice. Like, that is a big issue here for Martin.
Yeah, and interestingly, Martin does not take the opportunity to play Linvala that turn. So it looks like not just a counterspell that he was playing around, but also maybe just trying to wait and get maximum value out of Linvala's 2 triggers.
He's going to get it. If Paulo can add to the board, no, maybe not. Grip
Yeah,
of the Royal is going to tap down the Jiraga Auxiliary, and it's actually going to make it so that Martin's fully punished here, I think. Yeah, he adds an extra creature with the Goblin Freerunner, but Martin did have a place to put his mana. He gets to support 2 for the cost of 4 green-white, so he does do that on end step. It doesn't do much here, though, as the only thing he can add the counter to is already locked down under a containment membrane. So
Yeah, note that creatures can't support onto themselves. If you're not
Correct.
familiar with that interaction yet. So now Linvala does come down.
yeah, he says, all right, well, I'm not doing this anymore. I'll just play Linvala here. He's going to gain the 5 life. He was behind on life total, but he does not get the additional 3/3 flyer. Poor guy will have to settle for gaining 5 life and making a 5/5 flyer for 6 mana. It's not the worst. God, Linvala is an insane Magic card. That's one of the best limited rares I've seen since I came back to play again.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I put a high premium on cards that take you from being behind and fix that situation, and Linvala does that great.
Right, and the floor on Linvala is just a 5/5 flying for 6, which is already great
Yeah.
and limited, so yeah.
Yeah, that is an A+ right there, Linvala Preserver.
So Paulo with a few options here. Looks like in his hand I see a copy of Brutal Expulsion and Exert Influence, 2 very powerful spells he could use here to turn the tables.
First off, he's going to attack with the Free Runner, because that currently can't be blocked.
Yeah, he had the option there of attacking with the Embodiment of Fury as well. Martin almost certainly would have blocked with Linvala, and he could use Brutal Expulsion there, but looks like he values just getting another big creature on the battlefield.
So he's going to settle for a Kozilek's Pathfinder here as a 5/5 that can get in pretty consistently here as well. He's got just the 1 colorless source of mana still from that Crumbling Vestige available, but that's all he really needs to make it so that Linvala can't block the Pathfinder and he can keep crunching.
Yeah, Pathfinder is a surprisingly powerful card if you do have colorless mana in your deck. Looks a little bit underwhelming at times. It's just a 6 mana 5/5, but that ability of selectively preventing creatures from blocking it is really, really powerful.
Ooh, here's a nice play. Exert Influence to steal your Jiraga Auxiliary. This is going to force Martin to either use it in response if he wants to get a counter on Linvala, or if he's got some tricks, he's just going to have to let it happen. He is going to activate the Auxiliary to get that counter. But Brutal Expulsion resolves, and the Auxiliary jumps over to Paulo Vitor's side. Big swing. And it reduces Martin down to 1 card, which means that Paulo can get in for 8 here. If he had a land drop, he could probably just kill him. Okay, that can't block this. 8U. Oh. All right.
Oh, wow.
A big payoff here. Vines of the Recluse untaps the containment membraned Sky Climber, and it's actually going to get big enough to block the Pathfinder and eat it. Whoa, that was a big swing.
That was a very, very nice play from Martin there.
Now, the interesting part about the containment membrane is that it just prevents the creature from untapping, but it can absolutely just sit there now. All right, we've got a new King of the Hill as well on our side table there. Jason Chung loses to Bartolomei Lewandowski 2-1. So Jason picks up his first loss of the tournament, and Lewandowski's 9-1 now. Expedition Raptor's going to hit the battlefield. And is this Martin Muller clawing back into this game?
Well, I would say yes, except we know that Paulo has Brutal Expulsion still in his hand. So that could, for example, bounce the Core Sky Climber and kill the Expedition Raptor. And with Paulo having attacked with Linvala this turn...
With Martin having attacked with Linvala?
Or sorry, with
Yeah.
Martin having attacked with Linvala.
Is that game?
Yeah, I think it is just game.
Two, bounce. 3, 7, 9, you're dead. One unknown card in hand for Martin, but that's not going to stop Paulo from just shipping the team in, and he does find the victory. So he's able to leverage that early board position and find the win here and force a game 3 against Martin Muller. Okay, let's take a look over at what Antonino da Rosa is up to against Mike Sigrist. These players are both 7 and 2. Right now, as we're coming into the match, we've got Antonino up a game 1-0 over Mike Sigrist. We're in the middle of game 2, and it looks like a pretty well-developed game here, Ian, as you can see on the board. Interestingly, Mike Sigrist, and he has taken it on hard mode. Yesterday, he played black-green, which is not one of the better 2-color combos in the format. And today he's on blue-white, which I think also fits that description. So
yeah, I've actually heard a fair amount of disagreement on that. Some of the teams I talked to said they really, really liked black-green, for example, and I saw quite a bit of blue-white yesterday, although that is one of the ones that people have mentioned is not necessarily where they want to be.
I like black-green if I get like 2 Baloth Nulls.
Yeah, Baloth Null's great.
That's an incentive, but otherwise kind of off it. To follow up with Sigrist and see if he was happy with that deck from yesterday. But here he's on blue-white. And he's playing against green-red from Da Rosa here.
Yeah, looking on board here, it looks like Sigrist has the upper hand, ahead on life totals with a couple evasive creatures in play, but...
Well, that could change quickly here as his blinding drone just got fought by a belligerent Whiptail. Predictably, the Whiptail emerged victorious in that rumble.
You can attack.
Antonino's a real talker. You hear what he said? He said, be reasonable.
Don't do it. Be reasonable.
All right, let's see what Antonino has.
Tears of the Valakut.
Tears of the Valakut, which acts a lot like Plummet. Basically kills a flyer. And that's exactly what it's going to do here on the Jwar Isle Avenger.
Yep, before trigger. I'm at 8. Forest gets... Yep.
Evolving Wilds follow-up for Sigrist with Da Rosa down to 8 life. Can Sigrist finish off here?
Another super hard turn.
This is great.
Is that
Antonino
a
does a
Tajuru
good job.
Warcaller I think I see there in Antonino's hand?
There it is.
Sure.
Bang. Take 10?
Yeah, Sigrist with a couple cards in hand, though, so he might have some kind of response here.
He also may be considering a chump block here.
3 cards? Yep.
That Merc Strider's going to have a hard time getting through the Shatterskull recruit. Even though it has 0 power, it's still an 0-4.
No blocks. No blocks?
Okay, no blocks here. Let's just stick with this one for a minute. We're going to jump back up to our main match in just a moment here, but I do want to see how these next couple of turns play out as we've seemed to hit a really nice little cross-section of this game here. Sigrist is going to thin out an island from his library before taking his draw step for the turn.
So this game has turned around quite a bit since we first tuned in.
Big swing, wasn't it?
Get you. Love it, Sigrist. I'm so happy.
And remember, that Warcaller can trigger again if Antonino has another ally or finds another one.
Absolutely. Antonino tested with a Pantheon for this tournament. Sigrist is on face-to-face.
Okay.
All right, Stasis Snare.
Targeting.
What are you going to target, Mike? Mike's planning out the next turn and how damage looks, especially considering if Antonino can find another ally. That's what's really screwing up the math race for him because,
Right.
yeah, he is in fact going to take down the Warcaller here just in case. Funny, he takes down the smallest creature on board with his Stasis Snare, one of the best removal spells in the format, because he knows exactly what can happen.
Oh, and is this a lethal attack? It
Is
looks
this
like it.
lethal? That's a clutch occurrence to
Looks
get
like
the blocker out of the
10
way.
damage coming through here.
There's one card that he's thinking of, and it's Vines of the Recluse here for Sigrist. So what he's trying to say is, if he has Vines, can I die? Is this a blowout? I think he just has to go for it here. Sigrist is trying to decide if he goes for the win here or if he sets up, or what happens if he does have Vines. Go to attacks, team, and it looks like it's going to work here.
That's 10, right?
All red cards in hand. And that's it. Mike Sigrist does win that game, evens things up. They're going to go to game 3. Let's jump to our main table here as Paulo Vitor and Martin Muller look like they're all ready to rumble here. All right. We get a conclusion here, one way or another. Oran Reef Invoker kicks things off for Muller. This is game 3, and there's that Immobilizer Eldrazi for Paulo Vitor Damo da Rosa. Oh, man. Right on time. Turn 3, Nissa makes a plant token here.
Wow. We take a peek at
Jeez.
Paulo's hand. His hand is no slouch either.
Does he have an answer for Nissa?
Doesn't look like he does right away, but he does have his Jory N and his Fall of the Titans. So these players may be able to just kind of trade Haymaker for Haymaker as this game plays out. We will see.
Okay, so Paulo offered the trade. Oh, and a Seed Guardian on 4. This draw from Martin is insane. He just went 2-drop Nissa Seed Guardian.
Yeah, that is really tough to deal with.
And he was on the play. This is going to be a serious handful for Paulo Vitor to try to figure out how to maneuver. And Muller is on a mulligan to 6 this game, too. Jeez. Down to 2 cards in hand, but who needs them? I got to see if Paulo can get out of this mess. Was that an embodiment of Fury for Paulo?
It was.
Okay, that's a nice start. Again, he could put up to 7 power of trample up next turn with just a land drop, let alone any other place he could make.
Yeah, normally, yeah, trampling over those plants is exactly where he wants to be right now. The trouble is that Seed Guardian. He needs some way to get that out of his path.
Martin Muller says, don't walk on the grass. Don't think Paulo's going to read that sign, though. Netcaster Spider's nice. Are we going to see Nissa minus here? Yeah, we are. This is not looking good for Paulo in the early stages. This has been absurd from Martin. This is the deck that has Linvala, the Preserver, in it.
Yeah, he's definitely got the bombs.
Goodness.
And, you know, we saw him stumble last round, Martin Muller stumble last round against Huey Jensen, getting stuck on mana, having a really awkward draw. This is the flip side of that, right? Where, like, this is the trade-off that he was making, having that awkward mana in order to have, you know, all these powerful cards in his deck. And Paulo in a really tight spot here. I mean, he's got power in his hand. He's got Fall of the Titans. He's got a Kozilek's Pathfinder, which would be great to get active, but is he going to have the time to do all these things? Sadly, I think this turn might just be Maw of Kozilek and pass the turn.
Martin's patiently waiting here. Yeah, you were right. Maw of Kozilek go. That is not going to get the job done against what Martin has been able to assemble here. And there's more Jiraga Auxiliary. Are we going to see another minus? We are. How do you beat this board state? The plants are 2/3s now. And I will remind you, he still has Nissa on the battlefield as well. Look at the cards in hand.
Yeah, with Linvala waiting in the wings.
Martin Mueller's putting on a show here. And the crazy part is that this has been a totally reasonable draw for Paulo. Like, look at his board state.
Yeah, I mean,
those are good cards.
I saw Paulo's opening hand this game. I was like, his hand is great. You know, this is going to be his game. But
apparently, this is Nissa's game.
yes.
We're just along for the ride.
Yeah, of the 3 Planeswalkers in this feature match here, Nissa is definitely winning.
Indeed. Okay, so Martin is going to trade off his Seed Guardian for some creatures here and still get that 2/2 out of the deal as well.
And you know what the really ugly thing for Paulo was? He actually, I think, had negate in his opening hand on turn 2, but he was tapped out for the Immobilizer, Eldrazi.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I think that's the case.
Blindsided by Nissa.
Yeah, he's got to be feeling really rough about that. But, I mean, what are you going to do? Not play your 2-drop on turn 2? Like,
Totally.
clearly that's the correct play.
Definitely.
It just makes it feel extra bad.
Okay, well, it wasn't a land off the top there for Mueller, but he does find a core Sky Climber just to add to this already absurd board. We've got a game 3 here between our players who are both 7-2 right now, and Paulo Vitor Damo da Rosa finds himself in a terrible position against Martin Mueller.
So, Fall of the Titans is relevant this turn. I mean, Paulo could fire that off for 3 and take out maybe Core Sky Climber and Nissa.
Yeah.
But, you know, that still only is a beginning to the answer to his problems. That Jiraga Auxiliary is going to be a problem, as well as just the massive amount of power and toughness that Martin has on board. So, looks like Paulo... Okay, he is going to fire it off for 2 and 2 here on upkeep. Says targeting you, targeting Core Sky Climber, and I imagine we're redirecting to Nissa if that does resolve.
Yeah, she did her job. Well, finally something went wrong there for Martin. He drew a retreat to Emeria, which doesn't look super great at the moment. But next turn with a land, it could look amazing.
And now Paulo does have that negate up, so we might see negate here on retreat to Maria.
He kind of has to.
Yeah,
right?
I think I would just guarantee to get value out of it. You don't want that negate stuck in your hand. Oh, okay, that was really, really well
upkeep.
played there.
Wow, that was super sweet. So he went for the upkeep Fall of the Titan since it is an instant, leaving up the negate mana, found a target for negate, and triggered Jorien there.
Yeah, really heads up play there by Paulo. I like it.
God, that's good. How many people make that play? You know? Okay, now that's interesting. Aligned Hedron Network is in hand now for Paulo. And remember that Martin's one turn away from activating the Jiraga Auxiliary. Maybe turn after turn.
Is that another retreat to
Jeez,
Maria?
another retreat to
Wow.
Emeria. The problem for Paulo is that he needs to get the creatures up to 5 and still be alive.
Yeah.
Which seems like a tough tightrope. You know, he has to Martin has to find a land and go for activating the auxiliary a few times before Paulo can do it. But can you imagine if Paulo can stall this board, Martin puts a few counters on with the auxiliary, and Paulo's able to kill all of them?
Or better still, puts out a few counters, casts Linvala, and then Paulo's able to just take care of all of them with the aligned Hedron Network.
I mean, he has an out now. It is unlikely, but he has an out. He needs to keep this board stalled, and he needs to keep himself alive. That's what he has to do. And then Martin has to find a land and start activating that auxiliary. Paulo's going to pass.
Yeah, and
He
Paulo,
finds a land.
Okay, so this is step one here. Paulo also notably picked up Brutal Expulsion, so that's going to give him a lot of flexibility toward maintaining this stable position on board.
These two.
Support. So those are 3. And I'm assuming that Martin is just going to sit here and load up on counters. This is a long shot for Paulo, but like you said, he can buy himself some time with Brutal Expulsion and maybe get 3 or 4 creatures out of the way with that Aligned Hedron Network. It's like the only card he could have. And it's also an unlikely one to have just because it comes from the battle for Zendikar Pack. It's not a card that you see played that often. Paulo's considering an attack here. I do believe there's a Netcaster Spider hiding, though. The far right card there from
That's right.
Martin's perspective. So, okay, he's got these plant tokens up to 4. Now, he can activate it here and start attacking. You know, the Pathfinder is kind of the card, but I think it's in Martin's best interest to stay patient here, actually, and just keep activating. All right, he is going to go ahead and get in there. This does open up some double blocks for Paulo, though.
Yeah, and Paulo has that Brutal Expulsion. These are tokens here, so Brutal Expulsion can take care of them permanently. So this may be a block with the Pathfinder to coax Martin into using the auxiliary mid-combat, and then Brutal Expulsion can take care of the 5/6 token that's being blocked by the Pathfinder. But we'll see exactly how this turn plays out.
He's just going to block here. It's a weird block from Martin's perspective, right? It's like, well, you're effectively chumping, so he knows that Paulo has something here. Brutal Expulsion, bounce, and sure, hit this thing. Okay, take 5, go to 15. Now, the other plant token is in range here of the Aligned Hedron Network, but I think he's going to have to give a lot more than that. The real problem here, right, is the Jiraga Auxiliary. I mean, that's the thing, because it's not getting bigger. It can't support onto itself.
Correct.
And there's so much fodder. I mean, look at that. A plant token plus 3 allies, and they're not going to stop either. He's got that retreat sitting there as well. Plant token can't block the Pathfinder. Yeah, Martin's just going to cash in a core here. Got a score update from that table we jumped in just for a minute there. Patrick Dickmann has defeated Jelger Wiegersma 2-1 to improve to 8-2. Jelger 7-3. Wow, and Patrick Dickmann had to fight through Kozilek's return, getting returned,
Oh, wow.
and wrathing his whole board.
So nice little turn for Paulo there. He had Benthic Infiltrator, followed up by Containment Membrane, drawing a card off of Jory N. So you will see that 5/6 plant tapped down by the Membrane. So Muller's board a lot smaller than it was the previous turn, but still, you know, he's still in really good shape. See what happens.
Well,
Okay.
let's start things off with a Linvala.
So this is actually secretly really good for Paulo because worst case scenario for him would be he fires off the Aligned Hedron Network before Martin plays the Linvala, and then Martin just plays the Linvala as a follow-up, and Paulo has no answer. So at very least here, when Paulo is ready to play the Aligned Hedron Network, he will capture that Linvala with it as well.
And interestingly, the Netcaster Spider is on 2 counters, so it is 1 away from falling to the network as well. At 4 power. This is so great to watch a player of Paulo's caliber work his way through this incredibly tough situation that he's found himself in. Double block, and it ultimately ends up being a trade for the Netcaster Spider as the Benthic Infiltrator gets in for 1. Ooh, Omni Rising gets exiled to the Ingest.
Are we going to see the Aligned Hedron Network come down?
To take down the Linvala here. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Now that his Pathfinder's out of the way, he's not losing value on that.
Okay. And all of a sudden, Martin's board is a lot smaller than it used to be.
Look at this. Can you believe this? Look at this board now.
No, frankly, I can't. I mean,
How did Paulo do this?
yeah. I mean, he's not out of the woods yet, but this game is looking
Well, he
much,
just played
much
2
closer.
cards this turn,
Oh,
so there's
wow.
Jorien as well. So that was a containment membrane that is sort of preemptively on the Jiraga Auxiliary. It's untapped now, but if it were to become tapped, it would stay that way.
And you know what, Marshall? So much of the way this game is played out goes back to that one turn where Paulo had the heads-up play to pass the turn, upkeep Fall of the Titans, leave up Negate, and then Martin played exactly a non-creature spell.
That was brilliant.
So Paulo could negate it and draw a card off the Jory N. If not for that, he'd be a card behind in this whole process, and this game might not look the same at all.
All right, so here's Pulse of Marasa now for Muller. He's going to get back the Sky Climber. God, this has been a sweet match.
And what's so great about this for Paulo now is by reducing Martin's board so much, now Martin is forced to play cards instead of just activating his Jiraga Auxiliary every turn.
Martin's at a hefty 25 life after gaining 6 from the Pulse. So Paulo definitely not out of the woods yet, but the fact that this is a competitive game at this point is amazing. They've got a little over 6 minutes on the clock here as well, so that's something that we'll have to consider. They've both been playing at a brisk pace. I wouldn't expect it to be an issue, but you know, we are entering a bit of a middle part of the game here.
So really key moment there. Paulo drew a Gravity Negator, but chose not to play it. So that means he's saving it for his Jory N, hoping to draw a non-land card next turn so he can play them both and draw an additional card. It's tempting to play Gravity Negator here just to start maybe attacking in with Maw of Kozilek, getting some incidental damage in, but there is that core Sky Claimer on the other side of the table.
Yeah.
So I think he's worried that that'll be left up with enough mana to make it fly and support it.
Okay, here's support and give flying, attack for 4. You fall down to 11, pass a turn. Does he find a spell on the top of his library? We'll find out shortly. Okay, here's the Gravity Negator. We knew about that one, but this means that he did find a spell. What was it?
Oh, Grip of the Royal, it looks like.
Okay.
So this can be
So he's going to
surged.
surge this for 1 and a blue.
Yep. So he'll draw 2 cards off that, one from the Grip of the Royal, one from Jorien.
And he found a blinding drone in there too. Wow, he also found a Goblin Freerunner here. Is he going to have to save these for next turn to keep the cards flowing from Jorien?
Yeah, I think he definitely should. He's more or less out of mana anyway, so
Looks like he's just going to save
Oh,
one of
okay.
them and play the blinding
just
drone.
goes to the Blinding Drone. So.
Yeah, he's got to have a little faith in the top of his library there. So Martin still has the engine running here with the Retreat to Emeria
You guys have
and the
no
Jiraga Auxiliary. He's the one who kind of has this incidental making creatures make them big, and he doesn't cost him any cards to do that. Paulo, though, has the card engine of Jorien going and has been working that like a violin. And it has kept him in a game that looked like he was dead on turn 4. It looked like he was gone. Martin Muller this game played a 2-drop into a Nissa into a 4-drop, and they were all good cards. He's still trying to finish off Paulo. Never easy against a Hall of Famer. Match update here as well. Mike Sigrist defeats Antonino da Rosa 2-1 on their side match. Stalking drone attacks, draws a chump block. Does Paulo find a spell? He does. He finds a second blinding drone, and now he gets to play the free runner, draw a card. And now he's got 2 blinding drones. Can he clear away some way to get in for damage here? That's the thing he needs to do now.
Well, what's huge is Martin Muller has no flying defense now.
That is the way to do it then.
And Paulo has a Sky Spawner, a Gravity Negator.
So wait a minute. So he can get in for 6, he can get in for 10 a turn then?
Yeah, and those Blinding Drones can keep that Sky Climber locked down. I think he might also have a Skyline Cascade, which can help him with this plan as well. So yeah,
Holy smokes.
It's looking like things are turning around for Paulo here. He just needs to be very careful not to leave himself too vulnerable on the ground. I mean, he has those blinding drones to tap some things down, but Martin's board is going to grow really quickly here with the Jiraga Auxiliary.
It looks like instead of using the Maw, he's going to just get Jorien up in the sky here.
Yeah, that makes sense. He's
Gets
not
in
going
for 6.
He's not going to be risking Jori in combat on defense anyway, and the Maw just has so much more toughness to block with. So, yeah, this is a good balance of getting some offense going in the air, but also not leaving himself too vulnerable.
Dude, if Paulo wins this game.
Yeah. If Paulo wins this game, it's awesome. Either way, this is one of the best games I've seen so far this tournament.
Martin used his Jiraga Auxiliary on Paulo's end step. Put a couple of counters on a plant, put one on a plant and one on a core ally token. He's got to get in for 11 to finish off Paulo, who just won't die. Okay, well, this is a good start for Martin as he is going to take down one of the blinding drones with unnatural aggression here. Though Paulo didn't take any damage.
I think that was
this
actually the Gravity Negator that got taken down. Am I wrong?
No, you are correct. It
Okay.
was a Gravity Negator. It got exiled. You can see it down in his file. Thank you for that.
Yeah, so that alleviates a lot of the pressure here in the
Wow,
air.
that was big time for Martin Muller. Because we know that he's got the long game here as far as just keep activating the auxiliary and make a huge army that can start attacking at some point. So that really took away the offense from Paulo Vitor. And even though he's got Martin down to 15, he now has to find another way to get in. Also, These guys are facing the clock down now in a big way. The time's going to get called in just a second here. Okay, he's actually given his team +1/+1 here, Ian, with his retreat to Ameria.
Okay.
This will be turn 0.
Okay, and you heard the judge there. This is turn 0, so the players are now going to enter extra turns. Starting with this one as turn 0, they're going to play 5 turns as they go back and forth, and that's all the time they have to finish this match. They're tied at 1 game apiece.
Yeah, and we may be in the realm here, Marshall, where the players are making decisions they wouldn't normally make just to try to conclude the game in this 5-turn span here. I think if Martin had, another 20 minutes on the clock or what have you, he'd be perfectly fine here just, pumping up his team turn after turn, getting some more creatures with retreat to Ameria, and maybe waiting longer to start making attacks.
He wants to win.
Yeah, he wants to win in these next turns here. He is ahead on life. Paulo's chipping away with flyers, so an attack makes sense here, but I wonder if this is a little earlier than he wants it to happen. That said, he does have 3 2/2s, a 1/1, and a 1/2 attacking, I believe.
Yeah, and he still has a Jiraga auxiliary activation in the bank here.
Right, so that's going to make blocking really tough for Paulo here. So maybe this attack will turn out to be profitable after all.
Stalking drone can get pumped too.
Yeah, actually, looking at it more and more, I do like this attack here from Martin.
There's another thing to consider here as well, Ian.
Yeah.
There's a blighted woodland sitting down in Martin Mueller's
Oh,
land
that's
pile.
a great point.
Yeah, he can double trigger landfall here at instant speed.
Right, so that means another potential +2/+2 to his team from the retreat to Ameria.
Looks like Paulo may be dead here.
And when you say dead, Marshall, you mean the beginning of the end here, that he's going to lose a lot of creatures in this combat.
Like this might be the end.
So only creatures have +3/+3.
So everything has basically overrun without the trample, so +3/+3. And then he also activated the auxiliary here as well. And that does do it here. Martin Muller, in impressive fashion, starts off so strong. It looked like it may slip away from him as Paulo fought and fought and fought and fought. But the late game engines were too much. You can see how disappointed Paulo is with that result as he reviews back over his plays. Incredible stuff in the feature match area, though. That was a true pleasure to watch those two excellent players
that was a
work
fantastic
their way
game.
through a tough game. I mean, did you see Paulo at the end of that? He's still just like this, just like, what could I have done? Was there a line I missed? Was there an attack? Was there a better block I could have made? And those are questions that he's going to have to deal with. A lot of things to track on that battlefield at once for those players, and probably an exhausting game. All right, that is going to do it for the second draft round here. Let's head back to Richard Hagan at the news desk.
Yeah, never mind me. Let's get you out onto the floor. Brian David Marshall's down there with a player who is tearing it up here at Pro Tour Oath the Gatewatch. BDM, who have you got?
I'm here with Frank Lepore, playing in his first Pro Tour. Frank has been around the Pro Tour for a while. He's done coverage. You live with a Pro Tour top 8 competitor, but this is your first Pro Tour. Tell me what the experience is like, and what's your record right now?
I'm sitting at 9-1 right now. I lost 1 round yesterday in the modern portion. I'm currently 5-0 in the draft portion, and it feels pretty good. I mean, I had more realistic expectations for my first Pro Tour, but I mean, I'm not going to complain, certainly. Like 9-1.
You told me you used Magic Online extensively to prepare, you said, for both drafts and constructed. Tell me about your constructed deck real quickly.
My constructed deck is basically like a Sultai Eldrazi deck. It's, I say that because it has black cards, blue cards, and green cards, but it's, it's loosely Sultai. Like, I just like the Sultai clan. So yeah, it has like things like Worldbreaker. It's basically it's one of the typical modern Eldrazi lists, but it has a lot of differences. Like, it has 4 Drowner of Hope, it has 4 Blight Herder, a Worldbreaker, as I mentioned. So it's very few spells, and 25 lands. It has 6 spells. The only spells are like the 1-mana exile cards like Relic of Progenitus and Scrabbling Claws, and the rest are just creatures.
All right, well, you had me at Worldbreaker. Frank Lepore, I'm going to let you go. You got to see if you can go 6-0 in draft here. In the meantime, speaking of draft, I see Randy Bueller, the Hall of Famer, at the wall with Platinum Pro Jason Chung, ready to walk us through another draft.